Real quick, what we're going to do in our presentation is we're just going to go over the design goals that we have come up with through this process. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the needs assessment that's been going on in terms of what we really need for the city of Springdale in terms of our animal care. And then also we're going to introduce the conceptual design. Of course, many of you have been able to view it already. And so we're going to review some of the aspects of that and go over really that process that we didn't just decide to do it this way because that's how we always do it. We decided to do it this way because this is what Springdale needs and because we've looked and researched the exact needs of your town and your city. So without further ado then, I'm going to turn, well, let me say one more word, a little bit about our firm, just so you know, you've got a little bit of a background. We're not a Johnny-come-lately firm. We've been around for about 30 years in the construction business. We've done designs all over the state of Arkansas. We're the 5th largest firm here in Arkansas, and as I said earlier, we've got 2 offices and about 22 people on staff. So we've got a full staff of resources to make sure the project is brought to full completion. So again, now I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him introduce his firm, and he's going to really review with us the design aspects.
So Shelter Planners of America is the most experienced animal shelter design firm in the nation. We've worked with over 700 different animal shelter groups across the nation, over 30 years of experience. Our founder actually worked for HSUS, the Humane Society of the United States, for 11 years and also operated 4 different animal shelters. So we have a great deal of experience. We really pioneered the new generation of animal shelter designs, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So just to give you a sense of the scope of our projects, this is about 300 of the most recent ones. So from the East Coast to West Coast, we're working on 4 in Oregon right now, and 3 in Ohio, and 3 in Indiana, and just literally all over the United States. So many of you may know that animal shelter design has evolved a great deal over the many decades. Originally, it was in response to rabies and when animal control was first born, and it was the dog pound. And these places were dark, damp, loud, really just no place that you'd want to go to. And mostly they just rounded up the animals and euthanized them. But over the years, there's been an evolution of what that is, and our founder, Bill Mead, helped to pioneer that. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that. I do want to talk to you about some of the shelter design goals that we have. We want to bring into the design the best in practices of humane animal care. We want to certainly reduce stress in animals through better separation, flow, natural lighting, things of that nature, more comfortable kennels. Disease control is very important in the design of a shelter because of all these animals coming from different places come in with different disease, so we don't try to not spread those through proper HVAC systems, etc. A warm and friendly environment. Again, back in the day, the dog pound was not really a place you'd want to go to, so we're trying to encourage people to adopt pets rather than just kill them. And so having a place that's more like a retail store type of environment rather than a factory or a warehouse is what we're leaning towards. We like to include more socialization with the animals where people can interact with them rather than them just being in cages. We do have a focus on education at the shelter and prevention to try to get the animal overpopulation problem under control. So the intake at the current shelter has been going down a little bit over the last 5 years, but the human population has been going up. And so the rate of the population increase and the small reduction in intake is a ratio of human population is not keeping up. The last thing is just about the staff. Turnover in shelters is very high. It's hard to get people to work there. Training new staff is expensive for the city, so we found that for very little money, almost no money, we can just design a facility that accommodates the staff's needs. That, where do they park, where do they come in, where's their locker, they have the right kind of equipment to take care of the animals, keep the shelter clean, things of that nature, improves morale. The needs assessment process has actually been going on for months. And that was this booklet is probably about a 50-page written report. Looked at your human population growth, and as I mentioned, it's been growing and is still projected to continue to grow. Your animal intake. The centerpiece is a building space program which lists every room in the building, how many of those rooms we need, what size it is, what square footage it is, including the gross square footage, which is the wall thicknesses, the hallways, and all the, the unassigned spaces. We did look at your operating costs. We looked at your staffing level. We developed an opinion of probable cost, and we also included a number of operational matters dealing with the operation of the shelter. So it's a fairly complete report. As I mentioned, the population, you'll see on this chart in 2016, we're about 78,000. In the next 10 years, that's going to grow to their expected 108,000, and then in the 20-year planning horizon, 138,000. That is staggering growth for any city, and we work all over the country. There are parts of the country the population is actually going down. Baltimore, Toledo, Ohio, a lot of places that we work. The animal intake currently in 2016 was 1,400 dogs, about 900 cats, and keeping the same rate of intake to human population. You can see that the intake in 10 years is going to go up to 3,200 animals and then to 4,100 animals. That is a lot of animals to deal with. And the staff has been doing a really good job of increasing the live release rate, which is a goal pretty much all around the country. So they're to be applauded for that. As I mentioned, the building space program is probably the centerpiece of the document, or at least it's the one that's most important to us as architects trying to design a building, listing all the spaces. So this is just a summary. It's probably about an 8-page document, but the administrative areas was about 3,000 square feet. The animal housing interior space was 5,100, exterior 1,700, animal support areas was 2,700. All total, it's about 13,000 square feet. The design of the building is broken up into 3 major categories. There's the main building at the front. So this is the main building. This is the front of the building. This is the dog adoption wing, and this is the dog stray and medical wing on the side. I'm going to blow this up where you can see it a little bit better. There's actually 2 different entrances. One is for adoption and one is for admissions, or surrender, sometimes it's called. We have some offices. We have included a small education center. We have animal control vehicles come in from this side to an animal receiving room, animal control officers. There's basically 2 different hallways. This one goes back to the dog, and this is the stray cats, this is the adoption cats. So if you're coming to adopt, you go down this hallway. If you're coming to look for your lost pet, you come in this hallway. These are all the staff support areas back here. This is sick cats over here. This dotted line over here is for a future medical clinic. Right now, the budget didn't support having a clinic. We think that's a really important feature and probably one that Springdale should have, but due to cost right now it is not included, but we have included a place that could be easily added without disrupting the flow of the building later. Looking at the stray wing, if you've lost your dog, these are where those dogs would be kept. If a dog comes into the shelter that's sick, Right now, they're just mixed with the other dogs, and unfortunately, then sometimes they get the other dogs sick. And so we actually have segregated different disease types over here to keep those dogs separate from, from your dog that you're hoping to come pick up. It doesn't get sick while it's at the shelter for 3 days. On the other side of the building is the adoption wing. So we have dogs on this side, a wall in the middle, you loop around like that. All of these have indoor-outdoor runs, so the dog has a place, they have 2 compartments. They have a primary enclosure where their food, bedding, and water is. They have another compartment that's outside with a little, like a doggy door, and so they can go outside to go to the bathroom. So a lot of dogs are potty trained, plus just getting some fresh air. We do have the puppies at the end. A lot of people come to the shelter to look for puppies, so we put them at the back. Kind of like at the grocery store where they put the milk and the bread at the back and they make you walk past all that expensive stuff in the middle. So if you go to the shelter and you're looking for a puppy, you're going to have to walk by all these other dogs first. There's some little bit of support areas here. There's cleaning equipment and things of that nature in each of the wings. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the site.
Well, this site that you see on the screen right now is over at J.B. Hunt Park, and I think many of you are probably very familiar with where that park is. Pretty centrally located area, very accessible for pet adoptions and those kinds of things. And what you see is North Pump Station Road is right here on the rim of the park, and then Fleming Drive. That drives you into the ballpark, into the park, and then the ballparks are over here in this area. And so currently we're proposing siting the building so that the front of the building, the main entry, if you will, faces North Pump Road, kind of a nice facade to look at as you drive by. And one of the things you might notice is this parking lot here. This is actually where the employees and the animal intake will come in. And one thing to note is we will have an opaque wall or a wall you can't see through of some kind of solid material around that area to assure that the transition of animals happens, and if anyone gets loose, we got them right there in the parking lot. And so that kind of occurs on this side. The main parking lot for the public is all out front. As Mike was saying earlier, we have an adoption side and a surrender side in the building. And so it kind of flows through the front parking lot. Then facing the ball fields, as Mike was saying earlier, we have the kennels and the runs back here where the dogs will be kept. Trying to think of other main aspects of it. Right now we're proposing kind of a park-like setting here out and the backside by the runs, a nice setting for the shelter itself. A few little exercise yards here for the dogs, and then some adoption areas where if you looking at a puppy and you want to play with it outside and get to know them, there's a place outside to do that. And that really kind of sums up the overall layout of this particular site. As we said, one of the real advantages of this site, of course, is it's centrally located. In terms of our adoption rates, that's real positive. A place where people know where to go and can find their dog or their animal if they're lost also. This particular site is off of Butterfield Coach Road. Some of you may be familiar with that. It's a little bit newer street. If you look, there's a piece of it right there that comes out and around here. The city, and this is the site where the animal shelter is proposed to be. Butterfield Coach Road comes around like this, and this road that you see right here, there's a new road proposed by the city to come out here to the animal shelter. And this green line that you see here, some of you may have heard of the project to expand the Dean's Trail. And as well, a future fire training center right across the street there. And so as the city grows in that direction, one of the advantages of this site is the fact that it'll be along the trail. It'll be near a main artery or street, but not right on it. And so, again, accessibility is good. As far as the actual site layout, again, that site is kind of east-west here. We've actually taken the main building, and it sites this new road that we're talking about. You can see this right here. And a parking lot here for, again, the 2 entries where you might come to adopt or surrender a pet that you've found, that kind of thing. In the last design, you might have noticed that these 2 kennel or dog run areas were kind of at a Y orientation. On this particular design, we've actually straightened them out to fit the site a little bit better in terms of what we develop here. This particular site, we want to try to keep that building footprint a little bit smaller in terms of our costs for land development. Soils are a little different there. And so we turned them this way, and it works basically the same as Mike explained earlier in terms of the internal function. And here again, we have an area where employees would park, where animal control would come in, and animals would be transferred to the building. And again, that would be behind a solid fence of some sort of material that you really can't see through that captures that area. And then on the back side, again, some exercise yards and some animal get-to-know-you type areas. That really kind of sums up both the sites that have been proposed and how they lay out.